Blessings. We are back with another video. Alright, before I begin, a couple quick announcements. If you are interested in booking your 2024 yearly forecast reading, that is happening right now, and I run that to about the first week in February. The 2024 yearly forecast reading involves a month-by-month breakdown, kind of what you can expect for the 2024 upcoming year. All right, it's just what it is, just as it's described, a yearly forecast reading. So again, if you want to book your 2024 yearly forecast reading, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com, and I will send you information on how you can do that. Also, if you're interested in any of the various other readings that I do offer, such as Klipothic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, deity readings, shadow work readings, just shoot me an email and I'll send you information on how to book a spiritual consultation or a spiritual reading or the 2024 yearly forecast reading. Okay. Also, if you are interested in taking classes, the way you sign up for classes, because it's the most frequent email I get, how do I sign up for the classes that you offer? What kinds of classes do you offer? What different kinds of classes do you offer? Well, I offer a large variety of different classes. The way to check that out, if you go onto the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, you will see the various different ongoing series and classes that I do offer on a multitude and wide range of topics. As I said, on the Patreon, we go in much more in depth, talk about things there I wouldn't talk about openly on YouTube. There's also the classes involve work, ritual work. It's more in a group setting. There's question and answers. So again, it's for that person that wants to take their occult studies, their left-hand path practice, their path to self-mastery to that next level. And also keep in mind, as I said before, when you do join, you get access not only to the classes the day you join moving forward, but you get access to all the classes that are in the archive. Okay. And it goes back now. Wow, we're about 3 years back. Okay, we're about 3 years back, going that far back. So you get access to all of that stuff. Okay. And again, there's classes on just about every topic you can think about: Klipothic sorcery, Luciferian magic, self-mastery, shadow work classes, Kundalini meditation and awakening classes, Sith dark side alchemy and philosophy class, ancient Egyptian vampirism, esoterical occult Bibles. These are all ongoing series. So check that out, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. And I do 3 private classes every month on Patreon for Patreon members only, along with the group ritual. All right. Also, mark your calendars. 7th Annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference, October 2024. More to come on that as we get later into next year. All right, check us out on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, one word. On Facebook, 2 words, Primordial Chaos. All the new content is all uploaded there also. All my YouTube videos, I upload also with links there on that Facebook page. And also check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, which is available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, my contact email address, the social media pages, the direct link to the Patreon page to sign up for classes, all that information is in the description box of this video that you're watching. All right, so I want to talk about a subject that I've talked about on and off over the years. The breakdown in meaning, the occult breakdown in meaning of the Set Heru story and what it really represents to us as practitioners on this path. How are we to take this story? As we know, mainstream Egyptology, right, and I have to use that term, always takes this story and demonizes it, right, from a religious perspective, right? We know the story, the war that existed in that story, the differences between Set, first and foremost, and his brother, Usir or Osiris. So we know Set sets out. We know the story how he tricks Usir to get in the sarcophagus, and we know the rest of the story from that. We know Aset finds after Osiris's body, or Usir's body, is chopped up into 14 pieces and put in the Nile, she is able to recover and uses the phallus to have this immaculate birth or immaculate conception, and she gives birth to the deity we know called Horus or Heru, which is where the Catholic Church gets their immaculate conception story, this mysterious, magical, mystical virgin birth, which comes from this particular story. So we know then the battles between Horus and Set take place, or Heru and Sutuk, or however you want to pronounce the different names. Okay, so what the most important thing to understand in this story, forget all that religious bullshit that they spoon feed you, and they, and obviously they make Set, they demonize him as some demonic devil character, and again, there's a lot of religious overtones to it when they do that, which is comical. But I'm going to refer you to something which is a very unique breakdown of Set and Heru. A lot of you are familiar with the book Set the Outsider by Don Webb and Judith Page. And in the very early section of the book, Don Webb breaks down, and he gives you an esoterical occult breakdown of Set and Heru, and he ties it into the red and the white blood cells, which I thought was very interesting. And he says Heru or Horus represents white blood cells, conformity, right? And Set represents red blood cells, chaos, rebelliousness. Okay? Now, when we probe this story deeper, when you get into the, if you understand the concept of the Chawuti, which is that image you see, you might have seen drawings of this, or statues or images of, it's one body, but it has two heads, the head of Set facing one way, and the Set of Heru or Horus facing the other way. Right? Some of you that have done some of the Heka work, you've actually carried out this ritual based on this. All right. So when you see that one body with the head of Set and Heru, what this really represents is your higher self, which really is represented by Set, in that always everyday internal battle or struggle with your lower self, which represents Heru or Horus conformity. Doing what everybody else is doing, trying to get in where you fit in. Whereas the Set energy, or the Set frequency, is the complete opposite. You're laying out your own path, you're making your own decisions, you're navigating your journey, and you're customizing it and making it personal where it works for you. So the Set Heru story is really the internal struggle that goes on within us, the battle and the war that we fight within ourselves. Because the weaker self is always trying to overcome, overtake, and control. Okay, so you have to be able to identify and recognize that as you're navigating through your journey. So we see in this story, when we are to put it in its context and this type of perspective, we see that ongoing fight or war or battle that is a continuous process with our lower or weaker self. Okay? And when you apply that to just everyday life, that battle is involved in when you're making decisions on a daily basis. Critical decisions like money, having to, face choices and trying to navigate through those choices to make the right decision. Because if we make a poor decision, right, and we all know what karma is, it's basically cause and effect, the cause and effect of the actions, choices, and the decisions you make. So it's that constant internal war that you fight on a daily basis to make the right choices, make the right decisions. Well, guess what? When you fuck up and you don't, and you draw chaotic energy to you, that's where Set now steps in and is able to do what Set does. Make order out of the chaotic, destructive energy that you've tapped into. When one understands the power of Set, that's when one goes to Set, especially when their chaos has become overwhelming. They're being consumed by their chaos, or it's too much chaos that has overcome them, so they now need to start to develop a plan, ritual work, and an approach on how to make order out of that chaos. That's very critical and important to understand. Now, Horus, on the other hand, or Heru, if you remember the story, we see he loses his eye. But you start to see when you study the history of Heru or Horus, he starts to realize that his perception of spirituality was kind of a little bit off track. Okay? Because we see the transformation of and change of Horus. There's a manifestation of Horus called the hawk-faced God, or the hawk-faced Lord, which is more of a volatile, aggressive manifestation of Heru or Horus, which doesn't come to this, practitioner's understanding until a bit later in your understanding of these stories. But it comes later because Heru or Horus starts to realize, well, this ain't just about light and love and peace and all this other stuff. Because the resurrection and manifestation of the aspect of Heru or Horus as the hawk-faced Lord, it really represents also every individual that's on this path today that came from a previous path, at some point came to the realization that what they thought they knew or what they were doing wasn't 100% accurate or correct or wrong or right. It was just the fact that they were misguided in their approach of how to work with spirit and deity. So you see this when you look in this story. Now again, you could talk to many people, read many books on this. There's going to be others that give you their interpretation, right? But we're looking at this from an occult, esoterical perspective, because we don't look at deity in that spooky mindset. Okay? But that war with your lower self is ongoing. Okay? And it's a motherfucker, because it pulls at you. It tugs at you. It tries everything in its power to get you off track of what you need to be doing. It tries to fuck with your focus. It tries, and usually chaos that consumes us usually comes in extreme waves, especially when things are going good. And what do I mean by that? Just so we're clear. Okay? It's like I said before, you could be navigating your way through this path, you're doing work, you've hit your niche now, you kind of established regular practices, you're doing specific things, you're starting to learn more about yourself, where it's becoming easier to identify the type of work you need to be done, this, that, and the other. But as I've mentioned before, sometimes what happens when everything starts to flow, shit around you starts happening that makes you scratch your head. All of a sudden, people you haven't heard from in forever start reaching out. Could be that person back in the past that you tried to strike a relationship up with, but just didn't have the opportunity. It always seems like stuff like that comes at you in waves when you've made a conscious decision to really navigate through this path and master yourself. Okay? That's not a coincidence. Okay? That happens very regularly to people who start progressing on this path, and then there's some shape, form, or fashion of outside destruction that gets them hook, line, and sinker. Okay? And you don't want to be that particular one. Okay? You just don't want it. Shit, I'm sorry, excuse me. So, all of these things are in a direct relationship to what the Set Heru story represents. Okay? There's a lot of ways we can explore and interpret how it would apply on particular paths, systems, rituals you might be designing specific work for those rituals, right? Having a good understanding and grasp of this story can be huge. Now, the Set Heru aspect, too, is a powerful mechanism that can be used also in your shadow work, okay? Because once we have the understanding of how those two principles function in what they represent, when you read the stories in the text, we see, for an example, we see a lot of people in these stories holding, for an example, or downplaying the significance of Set. Okay? And it was, I can't think of the name because I know it was, drawing a blank, it was like 2-3 weeks ago. But anyway, as I said before, there is books that are going to have, or you might even run into people are going to have a different approach to what this story represents. Okay? But we're looking at the esoterical occult breakdown. I'm not looking for the literalness. There's going to be people who are going to come with it from a different avenue with a different perspective. I'm not interested in that. Okay? I'm not interested in the surface information, because the surface information is what has led us astray. It's what they want to filter to you on the surface to keep you dumbed down. And we're not having that on this path. Okay? So this internal struggle within that represents the Set Heru energy, you now have to ask yourself, which side are you leaning to more? Where are you at in that equation? Are you 60-40, 70-30, if we had to break it down in a percentile? Where are you in that equation? Now again, that's something to answer to yourself as you evaluate. Okay? But these Set Heru conflicts within can be very taxing. These challenges could be very taxing also if you're adding in children that you're raising. Because your job as a black magician, adept, whatever you want to call it, is to master yourself first and everything in your immediate surroundings and environment. Once that is achieved, then that paints a whole different picture. Once it is achieved, you start stepping it up a notch. And you're going to find out as you get linked in and strongly connected. It's not just in what I'm talking about here with Set Heru, this path in general. You will see, you will be like a magnet for doing specific ritual work and things on this path. Okay? So we need to get locked in our head that Set Heru story isn't that villain devil story that they attribute to it, and then Set is this horrible adversarial deity or spirit or demon. People will find reasons not to deal with the real self. There'll be a ton of outside distractions, this, that, and the other. Okay? And we have to be careful not to get caught up in all those things for a multitude of reasons. Because it sidetracks you from exploring the truth, from developing your path to self-mastery. That's one aspect of time, or when things happen with time, that really becomes frustrating to me. When you lose important moments or time, or calling a timeout or a stoppage in your life for whatever reason. Sometimes we need timeouts and breaks just to get our minds functioning at its correct capacity. And there's no shame in that. I just want to be clear. If you feel like you need a break, it's okay to sit back and relax and parlay for a little bit. That's okay. Ignoring it could be more destructive. Again, an inner set Heru conflict because you're making a decision. But it could be detrimental because you don't want to aggravate certain things. When I say aggravate certain things, you don't want to go back to bad habits, bad characteristic traits, bad things about your personality. Again, all of this ties into the inner battle you fight within on a daily basis. Now, look, I want to be clear. This could be such basic as, and I've said this before in classes, it could be something as basic as getting up in the morning, opening your closet. What kind of sneakers or shoes am I going to wear today? What shirt am I going to put on today? What bottom? This, that, and the other. Okay? Then that internal battle, and it's a battle because sometimes you might make a decision smooth, but sometimes it can be a little bit of a process. Then it's, what am I going to eat? Then it's, what am I going to do? And any time you are faced and forced with a decision, especially in the moment, you're dealing with that set Heru energy. Okay? So it's very important and critical that we look at that story and the connection with Set and Heru. We look at it more from an occult left-hand path perspective. Okay? We're not looking at it on the surface, because I know I've read a million of the breakdowns of what right-hand path philosophers think that story is saying. Okay? And it's not saying what they think. All right? You're going to get surface information. Now, again, I would refer you to Set the Outsider. It's by Don Webb and Judith Page. There's another good book by Don Webb called The Seven Faces of Darkness, which was probably one of the first books I used to always encourage people to get in reference to understanding about Set and his different manifestations and how to approach Set and how to do ritual work, this, that, and the other. It's a very good book. It's called The Seven Faces of Darkness. I know some of you who've been around for a while, you're very familiar with it. Maybe if you're newer, you may not be familiar with it at all. You may not never even heard of it. But it's important we're getting and taking in the right quality and level of information. Why? To avoid ourselves being indoctrinated. That's why. Okay? And the Set Heru story, it's almost like you're using your willpower and you're faced with a decision. Okay? We know what Set represents. We know what's going to get done on this end. But there might be other pantheons of archetypes and spirits that you may not be ready to open yourself up to. Okay? So, we always have to be aware. Aware of what? The choices and the decisions we make. Why? Because we need to also be clear on the repercussions of those choices and situations. That's what exercising your willpower is, right? One of the aspects of accessing or exercising your willpower is important and critical, because when we're working rituals, that's what we're doing, whether we're conscious of it or not. We're enforcing our will on a specific situation. And you go into your subjective consciousness and you visualize that and you stamp it there on the mental plane, whatever you want to call it. But you must also do things in your mundane life, carry out and assist things that assist your petition. Because look, people, I don't know how many times why somebody just doesn't pause and think constantly. If it was just about sitting back, laying back, poof, snapping your fingers, puff them, and everything you've been trying to accomplish was just gonna be there because you made a statement that you're on this path. A lot of people say a lot of things out of their mouth, but it holds no weight. Okay? It holds absolutely no weight. So simply we ought to look at this Set Heru story as an inner battle that we fight on a daily and a regular basis. A very volatile energy that one must come prepared and have a certain level of understanding in order for them to carry out any type of work. Okay? So it's not about getting caught up in certain things, that sometimes you can't control. They're beyond, well, let me just reiterate. When I say beyond your control, sometimes things happen in the moment, just in that split second or that twinkling of an eye, lack of a better word, and it could change things drastically. That can happen. Right? So as spiritual warriors, we must be prepared to go to battle when it's time to go to battle. The spiritual warrior is always ready and always on point and always ready to go when it comes in relationship to you as the individual or the person that's on this path to try to better improve themselves on all levels. It's that simple. Okay, stop looking, and this is hard to get across to a lot of practitioners. And I know most people are going to say, no, I don't approach books like that, but a lot of people do and they're not aware of it. Stop thinking the book is going to explain every single thing to you about this path and what you study. It's not. Just like everything you read on the surface about Set and Heru, it's dicey because it's very religious in nature. You could see the Christian overtones and energy. Now, yes, there's a synchronization across the board. There we have the two warring brothers, which this is something that has continually happened through this timeline. You had Jacob and Esau. Okay, you had Ishmael. You have many different things that you will face, and I'm just running through how this. And let me just finish this up before I actually part, because there's a couple. I might do a part 2 on this. I'm just saying it could be in reference to making decisions on your spiritual path. It could be in reference to making money decisions. It could be in reference to making relationship decisions. It could be in reference to making decisions on how to raise and upbring your kids. All of these things is that internal battle or will, or the battle that you fight to exercise your will. But your will should always be exercised for the beneficial aspect of you obtaining what it is you need to obtain. So again, it could start as simple, what am I going to wear today? What am I eating for breakfast? And then it can go a little bit more in-depth and complex. But when you look at that Houthi symbol of the one body with the head of Set facing one way and the head of Horus facing the other way, the most important thing, and I'm going to do a part 2 on this, is that it represents the embodiment of light and darkness, okay? And I'm going to do a part 2 today because I'm at my destination, 9 rounds. I'm going to get in here. That will be part 2 to this video. The embodiment of light and darkness. That's really what all of this, I was summing up. It will go, and I will touch on this in the second part. All right. Again, if you need to reach out to me for a spiritual consultation or a reading, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. The information on how to sign up for classes on the official Primordial Chaos page, the social media platforms, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos podcast, all of that is in the description box of this video you're watching right now. And we will talk soon. All right, frontal blessings.